Hello, Jonathan, aka Kalos, aka Goatbeard, and I'm back. And this is going to be a kind of episodic thing I'm planning to do with this channel, Dead Man's Journey or Dead Man Walking. Uh, it's become a little more pertinent lately. I did get some news in early part of December that my cancer, my mesothelioma, had spread to my upper abdomen. Apparently, that happened like back when my immunotherapy had stopped working. But the trial I'm on had kept it stable. So now it's growing again in my abdomen, not in my left chest where the other mesothelioma is. And there are some options, but it just brings to mind to me why I started this channel. Again, I'm a philosophy student at Marquette University, a graduate student working on towards my master's. But the real purpose of this has always been about leaving something for my children. And it kind of brings me to what I want to talk about today. And I'm going to ramble a little off. The idea of this series, uh, you know, discussions, dead man's discussions, or is going to be rambling philosophical musings, I guess. But to kind of keep it pertinent to the current situation we're in. As you can see, I'm wearing my Airborne T-shirt. This is a very old T-shirt. I went to Airborne School in 1998. Uh, and what I want to talk today a little bit is about reflects a bit on my service, and it's about humanity. You see, when I came back from Iraq, I needed to hold on to this idea that I was a good man. I didn't agree with our decision to go to Iraq, but I was a good soldier. I was loyal to my country, and they sent me to Iraq with our elected leaders, and I went. I had read Achilles in Vietnam by psychiatrist Jonathan Shea. I was prepared to try and keep my humanity as a combat infantryman in the 101st Airborne uh, as best I could. And that of my soldiers, I was a platoon leader. I was, I don't want to get into, I was a typical LT who had to have his ass chewed by his platoon sergeant a few times. I hit my stride halfway through. I was never a particularly good administrative officer, but I felt like I did a pretty good job in Iraq. That being said, there was enough things I saw that when I came back, it was important to me that I believed I was a good man, that my country was a good country, and that my patriotism mattered. And I struggled with that for a long time. Uh, and when things went south in my life, I had to come to terms with the fact that maybe I wasn't a good person. And of course, like the whole point is just like, well, how does this relate to, you know, discussion of what the point of this channel is to leave something behind for my children. And my hope when I started the channel was that this leaving behind something would be really an exercise in showing my children that even when the chips are down and you got a crappy hand, you play it the best you can, and that life isn't over. You can still move forward. It wasn't to get political. It wasn't to get, you know, I guess to get a bit philosophical, right? About how to face death. But I find myself today really sad because for me, finding a bit of regaining a bit of my own humanity was coming to terms with a past that I thought I had done the best I could, and maybe I did. But I've really come to believe that even a war that's justified, when we send men, boys to war, they're sacrificing hum- a piece of their humanity. And maybe we take that. a little too lightly. I think maybe, the fact that I got health care is because I'm a veteran. If I wasn't a veteran, now I probably got this. This is most likely because I was a veteran is the reason I got mesothelioma and asbestos exposure. But without it, that lifeline, I probably wouldn't be alive here today. So where am I going with this? Uh, Talk a little bit about humanity and the rhetoric, the political rhetoric. I'm not here to judge whether you voted Republican or Democrat or if you voted for Trump or whatever, but the rhetoric and the way we are talking about things, how we've gone from enemies within to, buying Greenland and making Canada the 51st state and invading Mexico and taking back the Panama Canal. I find this rhetoric very terrifying. And I see a plague coming. I'm going to actually read a bit from The Plague by Albert Camus. And we, in the book, the rats are crawling out into the start of the book. The rats are crawling out into the streets, and everyone's to die, and everyone's staring at them, seeing the portents, but not quite believing what is to come. I think the way things going is going to make radicals of all of us, and I am afraid, not for my own life. I know that whatever's coming, I'm not likely to survive. But my children, what am I leaving behind for my children? 14, 12, 10 boys. What are they going to get drug into? Whether you're a left radical or a right radical, who's going to radicalize them? What kind of resistance or non-resistance is going to happen? Will they survive it? And if they do, what will be left of their humanity? More so than their material conditions, more so than um, anything else. It's their humanity I'm afraid for. Maybe it's because I feel like I've lost some of my humanity. So let's kind of get into this. I'm going to read a section from The Plague. Our character is Teru. Him and Dr. Ryu have been working tirelessly to try and keep the streets clean, to help the sick in any way they can in this story. I highly recommend it as a read. I'm not as optimistic as Camus is, and I'll get to that at the end. But for this moment, I want to talk about what Teru says in this conversation with Dr. Ryu. He's revealing his past to Ryu, Dr. Ryu or Dr. Ryu. Uh, and he says to the doctor, all I maintain on this earth, there are pestilences and there are victims. It is up to us, so far as possible, to not join forces with the pestilences. They may sound simple to the point of that may sound simple to the point of childishness. I can't judge if it's simple, but I know it's true. You see, I've heard such quantity of arguments which very nearly turned my head and turned other people's head enough to make them approve of murder. And I'd come to realize that all our troubles spring from our failure to use plain, clear cut language. So I resolved always to speak and to act quite clearly, as this was the only way of setting myself on the right track. That's why I say there are pestilences and there are victims, no more than that. If by making that statement I too become a carrier of the plague germ, at least I don't do it willfully. I try, in short, to be an innocent murderer. You see, I've no great ambitions. I grant we should add a third category, that of the true healers. But it's a fact one doesn't come across many of them. And anyhow, it must be a hard vocation. That is why I decided to take, in every predicament, the victim side so as to reduce the damage done. Among them, I can at least try to discover how one attains to the third category, in other words, to peace. I really connect with Teru. Teru dies in the story. I'm sorry if I spoiled it. So, um, and I'll continue on a little bit with their conversation, but to be an innocent murderer, I don't know. I don't think that I am. I would hope that maybe my children could be, but they're so young and they're so easily manipulated by the forces outside of my control. All I can do is try to be the best example I can be, right? I think the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO is very telling because from the left and the right, there's no sympathy. And if I'm honest with you, I have very little sympathy too, because I'm no innocent murderer. There's a burning anger that is just rife for people to take advantage of and turn towards others, to turn towards people we hate, to turn outwards towards the world. We don't look back at our history and realize, like, oh, we could never be the Nazis yet, haven't we? We're not those people anymore, right? Are we? At the end of the story, Dr. Ryu talks about the plague bacillus. And when they finally defeated the plague, he knew the plague blast bacillus never dies or disappears for good, that it can lie dormant for years and years in the furniture and linen chests, that it bides its time in bedrooms, cellars, trunks, and bookshelves, and that perhaps one day would come for the bane and enlightenment of men, it would rise up its rats again and send them forth to die in a happy city. I guess I'm arguing that the rats are already crawling out in the street to die, and we're staring with morbid fascination at them. That that not believing that something bad is coming, that all of our humanity, what kind of plague will this be? Will it be a coronavirus where we find a vaccine, where all the things we do now that don't work will someday work as it does in the book to restore a sense of normalcy? No. And I think if we look at our own past, we have to admit we committed genocide early in our history against the native indigenous population. We we committed slavery. We created the atomic bomb. We have handed off power to the rich and wealthy that led to the Great Depression, that led to the Great Recession. It's easy for me to get angry, but I'm not here to radicalize anybody. And not put my faith in the Democrats either. See, they're just as held to wealthy as the Republicans are. They play both sides. We've all been vote for your favorite billionaire, favorite mega corporation. I don't know what's coming. how bad it's going to be, but I'm pretty confident it's not going to be great. What are we to do? I don't have the answer for that either. Now let's return to Teru and Dr. Ryu's conversation. It comes to this, Teru said almost casually. What interests me is learning how to become a saint. But you don't believe in God, this is Dr. Ryu. Exactly. Can one be a saint without God? That's the problem. In fact, the only problem I'm up against today. A sudden blaze sprang above the place the shouts had come from, and stemming the windstream, a rumor of many voices came to their ears. The blaze died down almost at once, leaving behind only a dull red glow. Then, in the break of the wind, they distinctly heard some strident yells and the discharge of a gun, followed by the roar of an angry crowd. Teru stood up and listened, but nothing more could be heard. For context, the city's been quarantined. Another skirmish at the gates, I suppose, Teru says. Well, it's over now, Ryu said. Teru said in a low voice that it was never over. There would be more victims because that was the order of things. Perhaps, the doctor answered, but you know, I feel more fellowship with the defeated than with saints. Heroism and sanctity don't really appeal to me, I imagine. What interests me is being a man. This is the key part I want to point out here. Teru responds, yes, we're both after the same thing, but I'm less ambitious. Ryu supposed Teru was jesting and turned towards him with a smile, but faintly lit in the dim radiance falling from the sky, the face he saw was sad and earnest. What 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 does it say about our humanity, where we're going, what will become of our humanity? Will we stand with victims, or will we get caught up too much in our own crusades? I know I could easily get caught up in one because I'm not an innocent murderer. There's a deep, burning anger inside of me. But when that anger fades, there's a deep sadness. I think I would contend that our humanity rests not in the space of ideology, but in that space of not knowing. Take the Buddhist term, not knowing. That's where our compassion rests. Not just compassion, even compassion for those we hate. When I went to Iraq, one of the things Dr. Shea said wanted to do was help our soldiers humanize our enemy. Because even when they're enemies, they're still human beings. They're still like us. They still show great courage. They're still fighting for something they believe in. I don't know. Am I asking too much? What path will I choose? I don't know. I'm fighting for my life right now, and trying to do something with it. But what can I do? It's just getting beyond the politics. This is going almost deep to the heart of darkness, you could say. I feel like, you know, the search for God, whether you're atheist or theist, lies at the heart of all of it, right? Who gets to be right? I myself, I struggle to have sympathy for the well to do, the wealthy, and I have a lot of anger burning towards them. But we know our history. It's not just us. I'm no communist. I couldn't tell you what a dialectical is, But it's pretty obvious to me that capitalism has gone off the rails in this country. Mega corporations that are multi international, an immigrant from South Africa bringing his brand of Afrikaner with him. What do we do? I don't know what we do. I don't know what the solution is, who the true healers are, or at least, in Teru sense, who's the innocent murderers. Humanity. What will be left of our humanity when this ends? Teru points out to Dr. Ryu that humanity is a more ambitious project than sainthood. See, because humanity requires us to accept our shadow. Teru's search for sainthood is about redemption. And in a sense, I think maybe that's why I I'm with I associate so much with Teru. Because there's still that part of me that wants, before I die, I want redemption in my own eyes, in the eyes of my children. Wow, what a real bummer of a talk. Welcome to my TED Talk. Hope you go away sad. Because maybe that's the point. Maybe we need to be sad. I'm not here to point out who's wrong, who's right. I think if we look inside, we know what we're doing. We know what we're doing is wrong. That that people are going to die. Children are going to die. Patriots are going to die. That rebellion, resistance, revolution, all for what? Because we can't have compassion for people who don't look like us? Because we're afraid? I'm afraid. I'm afraid that we're all going to be radicalized and that our humanity is going to be, in any conflict, we all lose a good bit of our humanity. And I guess I hope there are healers out there, like true healers. Like Teru says, I imagine it's a hard vocation. Oh, hope I've bummed you out enough, because that's really kind of the point. Till my next episode.